you as always. I'm still setting up here in my lovely Brooklyn apartment, sitting here in the bedroom, ready to talk with all of you, getting in the proper position. So glad to be with you all tonight. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Be sure to hit the notifications bell. And we're going to have one of our great Saturday evening chats. That is the plan. So glad that we could engage, that we could have a conversation. It is Saturday night, and we're watching the situation in Afghanistan, and we're watching the situation here in the United States. And we've got a little bit of nervousness. We're a little bit nervous, and no one blames us for it. The economy is certainly not doing the best, and people are suffering. And anyway, I'll get to all of that in my opening remarks. So be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Be sure to hit the notifications bell. The way phone there. That's what that was about. Before we get started tonight, the way we do things is that for the first half of the show, I just talk. I just give you my perspective. I give my opening remarks. Then from there, after we've done that, then I answer your super chat questions in the second half of the show. But before we get to the second half of the show, there's kind of an intermission, if you will. But that intermission is me doing the roll call and calling you out as I see you, names and locations. We call you out as I see you. And then after that, then I answer your super chat questions for the rest of the show. So if you have a super chat, send me a super chat. I will write it down. You send me a super chat, I will send you an answer. It may not be the answer that you want, but you will get an answer if you send me a super chat. And then the second half of the show, then I answer those super chat questions. That's after we do the roll call. So opening remarks, roll call, and then super chats. That's how we do it. It's pouring rain. It looks like there's going to be a hurricane, right? That's what everyone's saying, a hurricane in New York City. It's certainly raining pretty hard out there. It's been interesting weather lately. I'm not complaining. Just doing my thing. So there you go. So I've got plenty of unnamed water beverage, and I'm sitting here in my lovely Brooklyn apartment, and you all are piling on in for yet another one of our amazing conversations. And so David Fox just sent a donation for the John Brown Volunteers, a great group of folks. They are really, really great. Earlier, David Fox and Dust James, they actually just had a great conversation with the John Brown Volunteers. So you should hear with Keaton and Joey from the John Brown Volunteers. They just had a great chat with Dust James and David Fox, so you should check that out. Thank you, David. And next week I am headed out to the West Coast. And the reason that I'm headed out to the West Coast is, we're going to have a little bit of a mini conference on the West Coast. So if you're on the West Coast and you want to be part of that, just shoot me an email. It's not a public event. We're not doing public events yet. So, if you're interested, all right, what is this? TPUSA anti-vax demagoguery, right? A reflection of the left. All right. TPUSA anti-vax demagogy. Reflection of the left. All right. Thank you for that. Writing them down as they come in. That's how we roll here. But anyhow, folks, for my opening remarks tonight, I just, for those of you who aren't aware, I have published this book, Bread Tube Serves Imperialism. And most of this book is not about people. Most of this book is about ideas. And I talk a lot about pessimism because pessimism seems to be a very essential part of the bread tube worldview. Right? They think the world is getting worse. They think average people are potential Nazis or potential extremists, are dangerous. That any attempt to rally average people is inherently fascist. They think that we're headed for a great ecological, catastrophe. Vietnam, Cuba being invaded. That's the situation. And they have this negative, pessimistic worldview when Marxism is a fundamentally optimistic perspective. Marxism views human history as an advance. Right, Lenin v. Luxemburg. Theories of imperialism. Imperialism. Writing them down as they're coming in. Writing them down. So Lenin versus Luxemburg, wrote that one down. Io says withdrawal from Afghanistan and decline of U.S. empire. All right. Writing them down. Decline. U.S. empire. And Marxism is fundamentally optimistic. It views human history as marching forward, driving toward a higher living standard, driving toward a higher mode of production, and that when one mode of production becomes outmoded through the process of human creativity and brilliance and the reinvention of the way we interact with our environment, humans develop a new method, right? Some defend Cuba, not China. My friend in the U.S. military says, all right, Germany, Afghan refugees, how many? Okay, just writing them down, just writing down the super chats as they come in. But Marxism is a fundamentally optimistic movement. It's got a fundamentally optimistic perspective. And I think that it's really our responsibility to try and take that optimism into the work that we do, not just our overall worldview. We believe human beings can get past the hardship of today. We can march ahead toward a new tomorrow. But we should take that optimism and apply it to our own interactions. We should want people to be better. We should want to be able to collaborate with people. We should want there to be people that come along that are Marxists, that maybe see things a little bit differently than we see them. But if we're able to have some common ground, that would be great. Look, I mean, I had a great conversation with Harpal Brar. Harpal Brar is the founder and leader of the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist. Very old man, not a young man. But and he just wrote a book about China that is a little more critical than I would be. I think he argues that the market sector is not necessary, and that it's kind of a mistake for there to be a market sector in China. But we had an amazing conversation, Harpal Brar and I. It was amazing. It was amazing to listen to this man. It was amazing to talk with him, a dedicated anti-imperialist. It was really, really amazing. So, right. Ordered your book. I'm in Edinburgh, Scotland, not due to arrive until 11:09. Are there online people you would support that are not in jail in the UK? Online people you would support that are not in jail in the UK. I don't know what that means. Okay. Online people not support jail in UK. All right. Not quite sure what that message is about. Tell me about your favorite animals. All right. And you enjoyed the Saxton lectures. All right. Writing all this down. Favorite animals. Saxton lectures. Writing it all down. I want to be able to get along with people, folks. I really do. I want to be able to find people that I can work with. It is a very rewarding experience to be able to work with people of a similar perspective for a common goal. It's a very rewarding experience to be able to collaborate with good people. This is all very rewarding. And this online culture where it's just an attitude of you want everyone to be wrong. You want to be the one correct person and you want everyone else to be wrong. This isn't a good way of looking at things, right? Thanks for recommending I Saw New Poland by Anna Louise Strong. All right, Eastern European immigrants. All right, okay. I Saw New Poland. Writing them down. I do. Immigrants dislike communism. And it's this online culture where you want everyone else to be wrong. You want to be right. You want everyone else to be wrong. And you don't really want to achieve anything with being right, right? The goal is instead of actually achieving anything, you want to just be able to sit there and go, I told you so. I told you so. Look at me. I told you so. And that is really not helpful, right? If we actually want things to change, if we actually want to get health care for all, if we actually want to end these wars and, stop the attacks, if that's what we want, our goal isn't just to be able to sit there and have everyone else be wrong. In order to get what we want, it's going to be necessary to form alliances with people. It's going to be necessary to have a relationship with people with whom we might disagree on a few points. And that's a really important thing. I feel like that understanding is missing. And again, a lot of what goes on online in Marxist circles, in BreadTube, and on YouTube, and leftist circles, folks have kind of given up on winning. And instead, they very much have kind of fixated on the idea that they can be respected, they can be an appreciated voice, they can do a lot of interesting entertainment and commentary on the way out, and as things just kind of naturally go to hell. And I want to think that that is not true. I really do want to think that that is not true. I want to think that we can do better than that. And that perspective often leads me to come up with things, proposals that are not aimed at the left book milieu, that are not aimed at social media, but are rather about how we can expand. Now, my whole thing, out of the movement to the masses. That's a slogan I constantly use, out of the movement to the masses. What does that mean? Well, there's a section of U.S. society of people who go to protests, people who believe in Marxism, people who hang out at Left Forum, and people generally refer to that section of society as the movement. And the movement is a dead end. In my experience, the movement is largely a dead end. However, it is the broad masses of people in their millions who are the makers of history. They are the ones that will ultimately determine the future of the United States. It's the broad masses of Americans who are not part of this isolated milieu called the movement. And since 2016, things have gotten particularly weird in the movement because a lot of times the kind of people who go to liberal protests for Black Lives Matter, protests to drive out Donald Trump, those kind of people in a really, really weird way, some of them are more pro-establishment than people, that average people are. Average people want to end the wars. Well, you get, all of these, pro-establishment people who watch MSNBC and go to Stop Trump rallies, and they say, oh my goodness, we have to continue. The USA is pulling out of Afghanistan and abandoning the women, and Donald Trump works for Russia, and China is committing genocide against the Uyghurs. And it's like, it's the, sophisticated liberal milieu that seem to that seem to be the ones that are more pro-establishment and pro-war. That's a conspiracy theory. You sound like you're spreading a conspiracy theory. And whereas it's average Americans that are just kind of angry at the situation and want things to change, feel like the government is run by a group of rich people who don't care about them, don't like these wars, want things to get better. And it's this kind of what you can call the movement has become this group of kind of sophisticated liberals who, yes, they may academically agree vaguely with some, notion of social democracy or a bigger welfare state, but in reality, they're more vigorous defenders of the status quo. And so, out of the movement to the masses is how can we reorient the socialist movement to stop trying to win the approval of the other people in this isolated milieu of society that call themselves socialists, in this isolated milieu of society that we call the movement, but rather build an organization and a current that has momentum among the broad masses of people so that we could actually win. How do we get to the masses, get out of the movement and to the masses? How do we do that? And I have been constantly brainstorming, how do we get out of the movement to the masses? And one thing that I came up with, I have to share this all with you. One thing that I came up with as a strategy for getting out of the movement to the masses would be reorienting socialists to become defenders of American patriotism. Say that, if you really love the country, you would want the people of the country to have jobs and schools and housing. That if you really love the country, you wouldn't want it to be wasting all its money and all its resources and its lives, the lives of its sons and daughters, on some international war to serve Wall Street. That if you really love the country, if you want what is best for the country, you would be a socialist. And I said, instead of walking around and saying, we're not Americans, America's a racist country, blah, blah, blah. Instead, it should be leftists who co-opt the patriotic notion, right? And argue that there is a progressive side to American history, that there is, the abolitionists, there is the slave revolts, there's a history of resistance to the wars, there's a history of fighting for women's rights, there's a history of fighting for LGBT rights, that there's a progressive side to American history, and that it's the duty of communists in the United States to reclaim that and to claim that for themselves and say that there's a big part of U.S. history that we belong to, and that the right wing, the pro-imperialist forces, the capitalists, they don't have a monopoly on the United States, that all throughout the history of the United States, there has been a progressive current of people that were fighting for justice, and that we are just as much a part of the history of this country as the bad folks and as the bad things are, right? I mean, that's kind of a notion I put forward, and I said instead of calling for the country to be destroyed, we should call for American rebirth. The notion that the country could be reborn and refounded on new values like justice and brotherhood. And I've addressed this in different ways. One story I've often told is that I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather from the South, from my dad's side of the family that are from the South, my dad's father, my grandfather, older guy, I was staying at his house, and with my family, we were staying over at their house. We're getting ready to go to bed. We're sleeping in the living room on one of those, beds that pulls out of a couch, with a couch that, turns into a bed. And my brother and I are sleeping in this bed, that pulls out of the couch. And, my grandfather's getting ready to go to sleep or whatever, and it's summertime, and the screen door is open. I remember he tries to close the screen door, and it pops out. It actually, pops out of the wall. And I remember my grandfather, he was not the most racially sensitive human being that ever existed. And I remember he then said, in response to the screen door popping out of the wall, he said, "God damn it, this house must be built on an Indian graveyard." And I, being a small child, did not know what that expression meant, but it sounded kind of spooky. It sounded kind of scary, right? He said, "God damn it, this house must be built on top of an Indian graveyard." Well, I didn't know this at the time, and I had to ask my family, my mom and dad, what does that mean? The house is on an Indian graveyard. What does this mean? Well, that's an expression. That's an old racist expression in America, in the United States. It's an old racist expression that if things are breaking in your home, right, or if you're having a lot of bad luck, that that's because the place, it's a superstition or a racist expression. He was saying things break in the house a lot. That's what he was saying. And so he was saying, oh goodness gracious, this screen door just broke. This house, things just keep breaking in this house. It must be built on top of an Indian graveyard. And I think about that moment and I think about that expression because I've thought about that, right? Because that's a really politically incorrect thing to say. It's a really an offensive thing to say, right? I mean, the notion that, the ghosts of Native Americans are coming into your house and breaking things. I don't think my grandfather literally believed that. I think it was just an expression. I think he was just angry that his screen door broke and he was trying to articulate that things in the house were always breaking. So he said, God damn it, this house must be built on top of an Indian graveyard. But it's weird because that expression, that old racist expression, that old politically incorrect expression, if you think about it, if you really think about it, the United States, the entire United States, is built on top of an Indian graveyard. I mean, it was a genocide. Millions and millions of people died. Millions of Native Americans died. The massacres that went on. They were giving people blankets infected with smallpox in the hopes of killing them. You talk about the cultural genocide where they were, taking the kids away from their parents and taking them to schools where they would beat their language out of them, give them, white names, etc. I mean, you go down the line. I mean, it's like the whole country. If let me say, if things that are built on top of Indian graveyards are by definition cursed, then the United States is cursed because it is built on top of an Indian graveyard. And it's not just an Indian graveyard, it's a graveyard of slaves from the transatlantic slave trade, from, the colonization and the exploitation of the African people. And you talk about what went on in Angola, in Louisiana, where they would just work these slaves to death and just, kill them. You could talk about the Chicano people who, had their, the country was stolen from Mexico, Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, stolen from Mexico, working people to death, you could talk about the Vietnamese people, millions of whom were slaughtered by the United States in the hopes of preventing them from developing socialism and industrializing. You could talk about the millions killed on the Korean Peninsula to stop socialism on the Korean Peninsula. You can talk about all the coups the U.S. government has been involved in. Indonesia, 1965, 500,000 people were slaughtered in a U.S.-backed military coup. Nicaragua, Guatemala. You can talk about so many African countries where the USA has maneuvered to overthrow anti-imperialist and progressive leaders. I mean, if there's any country that's like on top of a graveyard, it's the United States of America. So when we socialists are trying to present what we're doing, we're basically saying that the country must be reborn. It must be rebuilt on new foundations, right? I've also used the analogy many times. I've used the analogy in Islam. There's a concept they call haram, right? And the way it was explained to me, the idea is that if something is created in an impure way, the results of it are going to be negative. For example, in legal terms, in the United States, they call it the fruit of a poison tree. If a police officer illegally searches your home and finds some evidence, that evidence is inadmissible. It is fruit of a poison tree because it was acquired in an impure way. Well, in the Islamic tradition, there's a feeling that, if you steal food and then you eat it, it might give you food poisoning. There's a feeling that if you get a loan to buy your house, and that loan is a violation of the Islamic law, that house might catch on fire or it might fall down, right? That if something is acquired in an impure way, the results of it will be negative. It will be corrupted. And I've argued that the United States was acquired in an impure way, that the United States was acquired in an impure way. The United States is fruit of a poisoned tree. And so what socialists advocate is recreating the entire country. They are advocating the country be reborn on new values of brotherhood, sisterhood, and solidarity, and not on values of exploitation and racism, and that you can't simply adjust something, right? That when the house is built on a corrupt foundation, the house must be rebuilt. And so I've put forward this notion of American rebirth. But I've said also that we have always been part of the history of this country. We have been those who stood against these wars. We've been those who stood against slavery, against racism, against the oppression of women. That socialists represent a current that has always existed in America's history of people who fought for justice, people who questioned injustice, people who stood against inequality, people who organized for the rights of the worker on the job and the labor movement. And that socialism, when it comes to the United States, will be that progressive side of American history, taking hold of the power, and with the power, recreating and reinventing the entire country, the American rebirth. And I put forward this notion of the American rebirth. And I have been provocative before, many times, and I've pointed out, and I've said that the type of socialism that they have in China, they call it socialism with Chinese characteristics, meaning that it is a type of socialism that is unique to China's history and China's conditions. And it's not a type of socialism they want to bring to another part of the world because it wouldn't work in another part of the world. They have no desire to export or spread their system because their system is uniquely Chinese. And that when socialism comes to the United States, it will be a socialism with American characteristics, meaning it will be a socialism that is developed to address the contradictions of U.S. society. It will be unique to the country. It will have aspects that are unique, and it won't be a copy of socialism in China or socialism in Cuba or socialism in Venezuela or Norway or Sweden or Belarus or Vietnam. It'll be a uniquely American socialism. Right? It'll be socialism with American characteristics. And so while on the one hand we're trying to claim the progressive side of American history, that's one aspect of what I put forward, I've also put forward this notion that we want the whole country to be rebuilt on new foundations because the foundations of the country are corrupt. It's built on a pile of corpses. It's built in an impure way. It is fruit of a poison tree. So we want an American rebirth. And then on top of that, I've said that the socialism that develops here will be unique to this country. It won't be a copy of another country's socialism. It will be a specific form of socialism designed to address the contradictions of U.S. society. Now, I've said all of these things before. I don't think any of what I just said here is hard for genuinely progressive people to swallow. I don't think anything that I'm saying here is something that average progressive people would hear and be flipped out about, right? The notion that we should be the inheritors of the progressive side of American history, the notion that the whole country needs to be reborn on new values, the notion that socialism here will be unique and designed to address the contradictions of our society. Nothing I have said there should be remotely controversial. I think I've heard such things from the mouth of many progressive people in the United States. These concepts are not, unless you're of an extreme ultra-left persuasion, what I'm saying here makes pretty common sense, right? Yes, I'm hearing the hurricane outside, rain is pouring, life goes on. But for some reason, when I said these things, in 2016, as I think when I started first talking about socialism with American characteristics or American rebirth, or American socialism, that was when I first started talking about these things. The response I got was overwhelmingly negative. I immediately was told that this was quote unquote National Socialism. I'm not familiar with that person, Gruber. I'm just not. I don't know the name. That was quote National Socialism. I'm glad you liked the BreadTube book. It's good stuff. Glad you liked it, right? And that meant I was a Nazi. And I'm like, no, a Nazi would not be, championing the anti-racist side of American history. A Nazi would not be championing the fights for people for equal rights. And that's not what I'm saying at all. People said, no, no, no. And then the response I got was America is racist. And by saying that you want, you want socialism with American characteristics, you're saying you want white settler racist socialism. I'm saying, no, I'm not. I'm saying I want the whole country refounded on new values. And the whole reason we need, the country to be reborn is because it is, the fruit of a poison tree and it's built on a pile of, again, if I wanted white settler socialism, I wouldn't be saying that. Oh, no, you want white settler socialism. Socialism with American characteristics is racist. It's the most stupid. Again, there's just this, this like hostile. How dare you suggest that? All this teenage performative wankery was the response, right? Oh my God, I want to destroy this country. I'm not an American. I'm a radical. This like performative, I hate America. I want to destroy it. I'm not serious politics. This is just juvenile, whatever. And how dare you? I will never wave the flag. I hate this. It's just all this performance, right? It's just this performance, okay? That's all they're doing. I mean, they're just, letting you know how angry they are. And this is white people, mind you. Now, for people of color, things are different, right? For black nationalists to argue that we want to be separate, we don't identify with the United States, we are a colonized people within the U.S. borders, that's a different thing. That's not what I'm talking about, right? Is the colonization of the Americas by the Spanish the same process as British colonization? Do we consider it the same? Let's write it down. Spanish versus British colonialism in America. All right. Very good. Very good question, Helen. It's just this very, very performative thing that you get from young white people, and older white folks too. And it's just this, and so I came out with that, and I stood my ground. I didn't back down from this. I didn't stop talking this way. As soon as I started talking about socialism with American characteristics, I started talking about American rebirth, about the need to reclaim the progressive side of American history. I didn't back down from that. But I got canceled over this. Oh, how dare you? Oh, my God, that's disgusting. You must be a Nazi. I bet you're a Nazi. How am I a Nazi? Why would a Nazi go around promoting his anti-racist side of U.S. history? Why would a Nazi go around, talking about FDR and World War II? I don't know. Whatever. So that was the response. That was 2016. Well, fast forward to recently, like this week. So people may not be aware, but there's a documentary that's about to come out that Cornel West and Richard Wolff and some other folks have participated in making this documentary, and it's called The Big Scary S Word. And it's a documentary about socialism. I haven't seen it. I assume it's the worker co-op thing. I assume that it's, based on the budget they had and who made it, it's probably not my cup of tea in terms of what socialism is. What is the image that they're using for the big scary S word? What is the image that they're using to promote this movie? Well, it is an apple pie with an American flag on it. Now, there's an expression, blank, blank, blank is more American than apple pie. And then they've got an American flag on the apple pie. And it's called The Big Scare. It's about socialism. And I looked at this and I thought, okay, that's interesting. All right, so they've made this movie, right? Good for them. I'm glad they've made this movie. It probably is a little more in line with the bread-tube worker co-op socialism than with the view that I put out there. But, it's good that they made this movie. But then I noticed that all through social media, it's being promoted. it's being promoted. People are sharing it. I can't wait to see this. This is going to be so awesome. Good for them, right? I haven't seen the movie. I can't tell you what it's about. Based on who's in it, I can assume it's going to be different than what I say. But that's okay. People have their views. People are sharing it. But some of the very same people who responded to me saying socialism with American characteristics by saying, he must be a Nazi. Oh my God, I hate America. I never would. So the very same people, the very, very exact same people who have been condemning me for the crime of advocating that we talk about socialism in a common sense way, are now promoting this movie. And I'm just like, really? Okay, neoliberal versus neoconservative. All right. I'm like, really? Right? Because, when I came out with this notion that maybe we should have, talk about American history and, I was attacked. But here you're promoting a movie about socialism whose image is an apple pie with an American flag on it. Like, what's going on here? What is going on here? Well, what's going on here? Well, it looks like somebody heard me when I was beating the drum about socialism with American characteristics. And while I was being attacked, and while I was just standing my ground, and while I debated Augustus Invictus, that's one thing I did. I debated an actual white supremacist, and I put forward socialism with American characteristics to counter his Nazi ideas. It seems like some people watched that. And some people heard me, and they heard what I said, and they actually thought, wow, might be something here. And it looks like one of the ideas of this little milieu of people that, that read my books and, listen to my lives and talk. Looks like one of our ideas has trickled into the mainstream. Good. Absolutely good. Now, I'm a little annoyed that these people are, that were canceling me and practically calling for my execution for daring to suggest this, are now promoting it themselves. I'm a little annoyed by their hypocrisy and their conformity, right? And these are just people that follow the mob, right? If the mob is going after me, they follow it. If the mob is promoting what I'm promoting, then they follow it. These are just people who follow the mob. But it seems like whoever controls the DSA Jacobin mob, some of the people at the top of whatever it is, got the notion that maybe socialism with American characteristics and, reclaiming the progressive side of American history, that maybe that might be a good strategy. And I was doing it, and they saw me debate a right-winger and bring it up, and they saw some of the speeches I've given throughout the country that are on YouTube that have many thousands of views, some of them tens of thousands of views, where I brought this up. Seems like some of my conceptions have trickled into the mainstream. Not the first time that this has happened, mind you. Not the first time. And I could give many, many examples. It's hard to do that without being a jerk. And the thing is, I'm not saying they copied me, because I copied the 1930s CP. I copied Earl Browder and William Z. Foster, right? I didn't invent this. This is how communists talked in this country during the 1920s and 30s, right? So I didn't invent this. This Gus Hall talked this way with his Bill of Rights Socialism, right? Bill of Rights Socialism USA. That was how the Communist Party, they advocated. So I didn't invent this. So that's not the point. I'm not saying that they copied me or, oh my God, they took my idea. That's not the point. That's not the point at all. The point is that what we do on here has a very, very big impact, a much bigger impact than you would believe. And it doesn't seem that way, all right? People get on there. There's almost about 200 people watching this right now. There's going to be a couple thousand who watch it afterwards. And we're a little community on here. And we have our running jokes about unnamed diet beverage. And, we have our causes, and we have our, we are the city buildings. We are city builders. We're the Center for Political Innovation, a think tank. And you might think that what we're doing is not that important. You might think that this is just, thank you, Andre. You might think that this is just some little, some little obscure corner of the internet where we just get on here and make ourselves feel good by telling jokes to each other and yelling about John Brown and stuff like that. But really, what we're doing is very, very important. What we do trickles into the mainstream. Really quickly, it trickles into the mainstream. And I've noticed this. I have noticed this in many, many places, right? I mean, I could tell you some weird stuff. Here's something I'll tell you, right? That, I mean, it's not a secret that well, I, I, maybe I shouldn't get into this, but I've seen many examples of this. I can't get into too many specifics, but it's weird. It's very, very weird. But part of what's being done is the pink tide, become enduring. Part of what we do is that we're ahead of the game. We're not following anybody else's script. I don't get on here. I don't just do what's trendy in left-wing circles. I don't get on here and just do whatever is trending on Twitter. I don't get on here and do what's already trendy. We try out new concepts on here. We do things that are not being done. We talk about concepts and ideas that are not in the mainstream. We engage in political innovation. That's really what we do on these streams. We engage in political innovation. We try out new concepts. That's what we do. We try out new concepts, right? We tried out socialism with American characteristics. And it worked for the most part. A lot of people thought it made sense, right? The movement didn't like it. But a lot of average people said, well, that makes sense. And neo-Nazis, who were supposed to be able to, destroy, and they heard it and they had no rebuttal. They were floored by it. And people who weren't socialists came to my lectures in New York and said, wow, I'd never heard a socialist talk that way. And we tried it out. It was our concept. Socialism with American characteristics. And it worked. So we tried it out. And now it seems like some folks with bigger financial backing and a more watered down message are trying our concept. We shouldn't be surprised that this happened, right? We shouldn't be surprised at all. We should expect this kind of thing to happen. And when it happens, you can bet that the people who were watching us and thought, okay, let's try this thing that Caleb's doing that's kind of working. If it works, you can bet they're going to come back to us. You can bet that they're going to come back and they're going to say, okay, what's Caleb trying now? Right? And they're going to pay more attention to us. And the next time they pull a concept or an idea from us and apply it and it works, they're going to come back and they're going to say, what's he trying again? And that's how the game is played. And our think tank, the Center for Political Innovation, and our tendency, the city building tendency, and our unique understanding of socialism, it's unique in the United States, it's not unique around the world. Plenty of people know about this. I mean, the way I talk is not that, original or unique in most of the world. It's rare and original in the United States, but around the world it's pretty common. Highly significant events in the history of American communism, right? Highly significant. Communism. The way we talk is not that unique in the around the world. Around the world, if you go to socialist events in Africa, you go to socialist events in Asia, you go to socialist events in Latin America. This is it's like, well, socialism is about economic growth. They go, duh, 5-year plans, Stalin, central planning. Right? Irrationality of capitalism. Yeah. And your point is, right? In the United States, if you say socialism is about growth, you get a bunch of these hipsters. No, growth is bad, man. Growth is my parents trying to get me to get a job. I don't want to grow. I just want to smoke pot. Okay. I mean, you go to the developing world and you say, U.S. imperialism is the main enemy, and even if we have criticism of the Syrian government or of the government of Venezuela or whatever, we don't want the U.S. imperialists to come in there and destroy it. You go to any other part of the world and you say that to communists, they go, duh, yeah, of course, imperialism is the main enemy. Lenin, the entire history of imperialism, yeah, we know that. But here in the United States, if you say, geez, U.S. imperialism is the main enemy, maybe they should keep their hands off Syria and Venezuela, you get, oh my God, you're an Assadist, you're an apologist for genocide. I met somebody at my college who used to live in Venezuela, and they told me that Maduro eats the brains of children for dinner every night. Like the way we talk on here is really, really not that unique, right? I mean, it's really not. I mean, um, it's really not that unique at the end of the day in most of the world, but it's unique to the United States. I mean, we represent the city building tendency, right? Yugoslavia. You think about, all right. Okay. Yugoslavia. Break with Stalin. Similar to China. All right, I'm just writing this down. Okay. Spartacists, East Germany. Alrighty. So, it's just something to think about, I guess. And I wanted us to all kind of keep that in mind. But the main thing that separates us from the rest of the socialist movement in the United States, the main difference is that we put forward policy solutions. Policy solutions. Right? We advocate what we would do if we were to take power. If we were to come to power, here's what we would do. We have a 4-point economic program. 1, a mass program to rebuild the United States. 2, public control of natural resources. Oil, coal, gas, timber. Public control of our natural resources. 3, public control of the banking sector and the use of the lending of money in the interest of the country, strategic control of the lending of money. Step 4, the enactment of an economic bill of rights for all citizens, the right to housing, the right to a job, the right to health care, etc. And if you did those 4 things, right, that would be a step toward transitioning toward socialism. We advocate Fusion City and a mobilization to build a gigantic, international effort for fusion energy, one facility for the whole world. Another policy that we advocate, is the Sandino-Zapata Economic Corridor, an emergency program for the development of Central America to stop the inflow of migrants and the humanitarian crisis where people are fleeing. Those are 4 policy solutions. Those are 4 specific, I guess that's 6 specific policy solutions that we advocate. And that historically is how communists, come to power, is they have a program and they go to Putin on Lenin. They go to the masses with their program. And that's how it works. And that's kind of what makes us stand out, is that we advocate our policy solutions. And we shall see. We shall ultimately see what the result of us going around and advocating these policy solutions is, right? The hope is that we can polarize society around these demands. Are you for it or are you against it? Kind of like what the Medicare for All March did, where they said, are you for it or are you against it? No, it's not about are you for AOC or against it. Brilliant reframing of the struggle. Thank you very much, Felonious Punk. Seeing positive progress in sub-Saharan Africa, right? Sub-Saharan African socialism. And there you go. It's are you for it or are you against it? Putting forward the program. And you put forward that program, and if people are for it or they're against it, that's how you move ahead. This is a different approach. It's a very, very different approach. A very, very different approach than a lot of the communist groups who currently operate. So that's kind of where we're at. And I just wanted people to know about socialism with American characteristics and the impact it's had, and people and how they react to us. I wanted you to know about our unique approach. I want anyone who's available to come to our conference in California to send me an email, and I would love to give you love the comparison to foreign socialists. Thank you. Socialists in other countries are serious. Let me just end it this way. Socialists in other countries are much more serious. And whenever I would go to international communist gatherings, people would say to me, what's wrong with American communists? Why are you so weird? And I mean, I remember I was in a meeting one time, and I was with it was the communist group I was in, and it was another communist group and another communist group, three communist groups. We're sitting there, and the Cubans are there, and we're all getting up and bragging to the Cubans about our activism. Oh, we do this. Oh, we do that. I remember this Cuban guy, it was a young guy in his 20s, a young Cuban activist, said, we're sick of this. We've heard this from Americans for so long. Here's what you guys need to do. You need to build a base among the population. Yeah, I mean, you need to build a sustainable political organization. I mean, and he just ripped us all a new one, and we deserved it. We totally deserved it. Shouldn't we nationalize utilities? I'll write that down. Nationalize utilities. And we all deserved it. I mean, he was right. He was absolutely right, right? All these communist groups in the United States, they all talk a big game. Oh, my God, we're doing this, we're doing that. They're not doing anything. They've been trying out the same policies for the last 40, 50 years. And they haven't been working, and they just keep doing them anyway. They have this permanent tactical orientation where you cannot do anything. Well, Vladimir Lenin said that if the situation changes in 24 hours, the tactics must also change in 24 hours. And the way these folks organize, again, trying to be king of the protest cage, trying to be the leader of the movement, it's not working. So out of the movement to the masses. Put forward the program. Go to the masses with a program. Are you for this program? Are you against the program? Right? That style of organizing has much more potential, I would argue. Christianity and its philosophy is surrendering, which does not make much considering... all right. Christianity... surrendering. All right. So I just wanted to put that forward and let folks know that it seems like some folks are listening to us, folks are watching us. We should expect this, and we should embrace our role as political innovators. We should embrace our role as political innovators. We shouldn't view this in terms of copyrights and we shouldn't view it that way. We should embrace our role as political innovators. Recognize that people are going to see what we're successful at and copy it. Recognize that that we're going to be ridiculed no matter what we do, but pretty soon some of our ideas are going to be into practice. Recognize this, that we're winning. Ultimately, our community has an energy that none of the other strands of socialist thinking in the United States have. And we're not competing with them, mind you. We are not a party. I have no interest whatsoever in forming a new party. I can't join any party at this time. My job does not allow you to be a member of any political party. It is a rule that is enforced at my job. But even if that was not the rule, I would not join another political party. I've been paying attention to some of the drama happening in some other parties that my name got thrown into somehow, and looking at that, I'm very clear. The last thing I would ever want to do is join a political party at this time. I spent a long time in my life in political parties. I want to teach Marxism. I want to educate people about Marxism, and I want to put forward policy solutions. And I want to train people. I don't know who that is. Maybe. I don't know who Jason is. If I found out who that is, he was a good guy, I might debate him. I just don't know who it is. Send me an email, calebmaupin@gmail.com. And I'll find out who it is. But that's what we're trying to do, right? We're putting forward policy solutions. We're educating people about Marxism. We are the city building tendency, and I just wanted to give you all that update. So thank you for being there for the opening remarks. And now we'll do the roll call: names and locations. Names and locations. Who's with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who's with us? Kendall in San Diego, Cleveland Pirate Alex, Gabby Hernandez Appreciate, Detroit Motor City, Victoria, British Columbia, Tulare, California, St. George, SoCal, Southern California, Nate in Chicago, Chaya, good friend of the program in Montreal, Philip in Cheddar Park, Texas, Mary in West Virginia, Kindercare, or Kincardine, Canada. Emma from Kincardine, Canada. All right, Emma, and I think I'll make you a mod. Emma from Kincardine, Canada, Hawaii, Jeff in Los Angeles, Auckland, New Zealand, Calvin from Saskatoon, Tamara and Dario from Brooklyn, good friends of the show. Shout out to you. Don in New York City. Very good. Jenny Lynn in Cincinnati, good friend of the program. North Carolina, Cyprus, Vicksburg, Mississippi. Jason is a co-creator. Okay, all right. San Diego. Mimi and Leo from Puebla, Mexico, welcome. Dallas, Texas. Vinicius from Brazil. Natalie in Maryland, welcome. Frank in Rhode Island. David Fox in Bendigo, Australia. Shout out to you, David. Always a pleasure to have you join us. Adelaide, Australia. Florida, California, Los Angeles. Io Hillary in New York. Always a pleasure to have you there with us. Great. Good friend of the program. Good friend of the program. Abisk in India. Thelonious in Utopia, Winnipeg, Canada, Wisconsin, Woodlands, Texas, Hawaii, Nationalized Pencil Factory, Robert Webb, Jared from the United Corporations of America, Mark from California. Hello, Caleb, and much love to you, Mark. Much love to you. There you go. Very good. Pomona, California, right? William Kane in Gateshead, England. Very good. Gavin Lockhart in Illinois. I think you can be a mod. All right, you're a mod. All right, Captain Waffles. Nick in Northern California. St. David's, Bermuda. Old Gringo. Too many interruptions at work. Rewinding back from the beginning. Very, very good. Big fan, my dude. You know so much about everywhere, even more than most people living in the places. Oh, well, thank you. I don't know if that's true. You know, there's a guy, good friend of the program, who's a tour guide. Who's a tour guide in New York. That guy knows everything about this city. I don't know half the stuff he knows about the history of this city. And he's a tour guide, so it's his job to know it. He knows the stuff very, very well. But yeah, there you go. So there you go, folks. That, I think, is our roll call. There you go. So on that note, I guess we'll start answering the super chats that have come in, right? That's how we do the rest of the program. So Turning Points USA, anti-vax demagogy. Is it a reflection on the left? Well, look, the thing is, okay, there's a couple layers to the anti-vax thing, all right? So first item is that... the vaccine is real. COVID is real. The vaccine's not going to kill you. And, okay, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I reject the anti-vax narrative. Okay, that's the first thing we have to get out of the way. Oh, boy. I work... okay, all right, let me write this down. All right, liberal capitalism, a reactionary nation... Right. Okay. Okay, crisis... liberal. Writing it down. States. Okay, so the first thing, like I said, is that the anti-vax narrative, I reject it. However, the second thing is the notion that the anti-vax narrative, it's all the fault of stupid right-wingers, right? Oh, these people that are anti-vax, they're so stupid. Oh, they're right-wing and they're dumb and we need to censor the internet. No, okay? I don't accept that. What I accept is that the U.S. government has lied over and over and over again. Big Pharma has lied over and over and over again. Okay? And so, people not believing Big Pharma, people not believing the U.S. government, makes perfect sense. Even if it's at a time where they really should. We should be able to trust our government. In a situation like a global pandemic, we should be able to trust our government. But we can't, because the government has lied over and over and over again. And that shows that, we got a little bit of a problem here. So there you go. Direct initiatives I'm not familiar with that, gentle laborer. I haven't heard about that. Um, so that's the first thing, right? Is that we shouldn't blame the anti-vaxxers. We should blame the government that has lied over and over and over again, which has given them a pretty strong argument that maybe we shouldn't trust them. In this case, the evidence that I've seen show, I mean, I'm very aware that COVID is real. I'm very aware that the vaccine is not going to kill you. I know, I mean, so, I don't accept that their narrative, but it doesn't shock me that people would be critical. It doesn't shock me at all. And the fact that people, there's some government that gave blankets to, same government. Yeah, exactly. So, there's plenty of reasons to distrust the U.S. government. In this instance, I think they are telling the truth. I think it is in their interest to tell the truth, but we shouldn't blame the anti-vaxxers. We should blame the government for lying and giving these people a reason not to trust them. So there's that. The third aspect of that, though, is that why is Turning Points USA? Why are they hammering home these anti-vax memes? Why are they saying things like vaccines are communism? This is an economic thing. Working people are losing money. Yes, I saw that, Jay Grimes. I saw it. I wrote it down. Working people are losing money. Working people are losing money. Working people are losing their jobs. These lockdowns have destroyed people. They have just destroyed people economically. I mean, there was a line at a food bank, at a church food bank near my house, okay? And it was late at night. I was on my way home, and there's a church food bank. There was a line. And in Brooklyn, New York, a line around the block of people lined up. It's dark outside, and they're lined up to go in and get food in Brooklyn, New York. I mean, this anti-vax, this pandemic has just destroyed people. It has just destroyed people. So, working people are upset about it, and working people are getting screwed by it. Working people want this to end. And if the left are just going, oh, if you want this to end, you're stupid. It's like the left doesn't seem to have any empathy for the fact that working people's lives are being destroyed by this, right? Plus, the left says everyone deserves to be poor because that's good for Mother Earth, right? And we need to degrow. Whereas the right wing says capitalism's all about money, and it fits their narrative, right? And so we've got this confused situation where the working class is being told communists want them to be poorer, which we don't. The left are defending the status quo, and saying that people who don't trust the government are all right-wing idiots who need to be, shut off and banned from social media. It's like the way the debate is lining up, of course the right wing is going to gain from this, right? The left is shooting itself in the foot. When left-wing ideas, when socialism becomes synonymous with the status quo, that benefits the right wing because we are by definition a movement that is against the status quo. But this has been forgotten. It's been widely forgotten, right? You talk to most of your typical DSA Jacobin person, they don't think that. They don't think we're against the status quo. They think we're just rigid enforcers of society's rules, right? They don't, and they think populism is a dirty word, right? The idea of working people rallying together, fighting against an elite. They're like, oh my God, you're a Nazi. It's like, these people, if Marx were alive today, if Lenin were alive today, if William Z. Foster were alive today, they would kill them. They would have them murdered by Antifa, because, they have degenerated into this current of anti-populist, it's their suburban spoiled children, really. Suburban spoiled children that are terrified of authoritarianism, i.e. people being mean to people. And they're out of touch. They're out of touch with how working class people live, right? Working class people often have military stuff in their life, whether they're in the military themselves, whether they have relatives who are in the military and all of that. So if you're going around saying, oh, everyone who's in the military is a Nazi, well, you're not going to have any say in a working class community. White, black, Latin American, whatever. Working class people tend to know people that are in the military, right? If you're going around saying, a lot of these folks, it's just about class, okay? A lot of the differences are class-based differences, okay? Let's be real. And that socialism in our time has been co-opted by this very middle class milieu of people. It's the college, the college, liberal arts college, academic woke crowd. It's very middle class, and they're terrified of working people, and they think what the way working people live, the values that working people have, they think are fascist. And they don't understand that, yes, fascist movements, fascist mass movements, and yes, anti imperialist and genuine leftist progressive mass movements tend to be populist